Good morning, Galway. It's 11 a.m. on Monday, the 26th of January, and I'm delighted to be joined in studio for an interview with someone I am honored to meet. Sheila Garrity is joining us here. You may know Sheila because she's been in the news lately, but I've been looking at her CV and I've been very, very impressed by the other things that are on the list here. And so, Sheila, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to be talking about an upcoming by-election.
We are, but it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm really grateful and honored to be invited to come along.
Well, thank you so much for coming along. Because as I said, I was looking at your CV here and just, I was so impressed by the many, many different things. And it's something that we've all been talking about, sort of, is who is being represented, and can we see people who are really paying attention to different groups. And so what I'm seeing from your history is activism, I'm seeing support for children, and I'm seeing different roles in early childhood studies that I think are an amazing sort of background to come from. So I was wondering if we could just quickly talk about that.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So you are a lecturer at the moment, is it? Or a director? I have trouble with academia sometimes.
That's okay. I am an academic. I'm a lecturer in early childhood education. I'm a researcher in that space. I'm a late in life academic. I worked in early childhood as an educator myself, and I worked here in Galway in a community development role as well, supporting services to access funding and to attend training and to improve the quality of the services. And then I had an opportunity to do a master's degree here at the university in 2007, and that led to an opportunity then to do a PhD. And while I was doing that, I was also working at the university to set up a degree for early childhood educators, and that was with the Center for Adult Learning and Professional Development. So I've kind of been always in this space around early childhood education, but in different roles over the years.
And obviously, it's the kind of role that I think many people would be happy to see being brought into the government, for instance. So when it comes to things like early childhood, you're going to be working with so many different people and so many different types of situations and problems. What, say, from that work do you think you'll be bringing into the campaign and going forward from there?
Well, early childhood education would be, I guess, one platform area that I want to talk about, and there's a whole range of areas that we'll obviously be talking about during the campaign. We have relied on the private marketplace to provide what I think should be a public good, early childhood education and care. And so the private market goes where there's profits to be made. They'll have larger services in larger urban areas. They tend to care for older children rather than younger children. So the state's move into talking about a public system or a public model is recognizing what the Department of Children call market failures, in that the care of infants and toddlers, provision of services in rural and smaller communities is just not being provided by the marketplace, because they go where there's profits. So the state stepping in, finally announcing it this year, the movement to purchase sites is a step in that direction of supporting the provision of not-for-profit early childhood education and care.
That's brilliant. And something you brought up there as well about the childcare. And this is why I think it was, or why I chose to start with it. Working with children, you're going to work with every sort of type of person, and so that intersectionality, in the sense that you're seeing a lot of different things. So childcare, state provided childcare is one thing, but even say after that, I imagine that you have a fairly good idea of, say, issues that might be facing people just after the early childhood and further on as they're growing up, and that sort of thing.
I just might come back to something you touched on there about inclusion in early childhood. So there's such a richness of what happens in an early childhood space, and I think if you're not part of that, if you're not a parent or an educator or involved in some way, you really maybe misunderstand or don't appreciate what's happening in earlier settings. So we I say that early childhood education should be a public good because we know when we invest in young children and families, for every euro, there's lots of research that says for every euro, for every dollar, for every pound you invest, the state gets a return of 7 to 10 euros back in the long term over that child and that family being supported in these early years. So in our earlier settings, we have the whole community represented. These are inclusive spaces where we look at questions of belonging, children's well-being, supporting them to feel confident in who they are, what their identity is, and come to know other children and other families. So they're real places of social inclusion. And when children start off their lives in that space of social inclusion, of welcoming and belonging, it sets them up to have an inclusive mindset. So, I know the community that's listening to the radio today are from a very broad, ethnically diverse and culturally diverse community. And their experiences, I hope, of earlier settings have been ones of welcome and belonging.
And hopefully it only gets more welcoming and belonging as time goes on. So that's sort of talking about the early childhood element. Something else that you have been very involved in, of course, though, as well, is the activism and the political organization for others. So you might tell us a bit about that.
Yes, happy to. I was brought up in a home where my parents are always very active in the community. So I was raised in Toronto, in Canada, by Irish immigrants. My parents left Ireland in the 1950s, and like so many immigrants coming to Ireland, they were looking for a better life for their family, and they worked hard to contribute to the country that gave them a home. But we were always involved in did you call it volunteerism? Did you call it activism? Or did you just think this is the right thing to do? Welcoming people into our home, being part of community groups. My mother ran a community kitchen in the Irish Centre for over a decade. My father served on the executive. I had a turn serving on the executive of the community centre. So I grew up being part of a culture that was about making the space you're in better. Coming to Galway 25 years ago with my husband Jim and our children, we just, we found a space, we were welcomed, we worked hard to make a home for ourselves. And when issues came up that I felt passionately about, I got involved with them. Probably my first activism was in supporting Catherine Connolly when she was involved in politics here and running for local city council. And that's because I listened to her. I didn't know her, I hadn't met her, but I would hear her on the radio or read about her in the newspaper. And the things she said really resonated with me. And I thought, yeah, I want this woman sitting in city council, speaking the way she speaks, championing her causes, and I'm going to get behind her. And so I've canvassed for her since the early 2000s. I was involved in marriage equality. Again, that was an issue that I thought, for me, it reflected my values about inclusion, about respect, about people's choice to live their lives the way that is right for them and the community supporting that. It was about love, ultimately, in the marriage equality referendum. And then a few years later, repealing the 8th Amendment. Again, that was about autonomy and choice and human rights. So these are the causes that just impassion me and get me excited and get me rolling up my sleeves and wanting to make a difference.
And there's something great as well that you said there about Catherine, and it's something that I think is also reflected in your own campaign here, is that when you talked about Catherine, is you listened to what she had to say. And I think that is one of the amazing strengths of an independent candidate, that there isn't a party line, say, to follow, or that you can't just, expect them to tick the boxes. You really get a chance to listen to them and find out what they believe. I was wondering, though, if you might be able to comment on that, because I also imagine that running as an independent probably comes with its own difficulties as well. Maybe you could speak to it on that?
Oh, sure. Being an independent candidate means I am beholden to the people of Galway West. If I'm so lucky to be elected by them, that is who I answer to. I don't have vested interests that I need to think about. My vested interests are the people who live in Galway West. But yeah, it means I don't have a national party setting policies and giving me a platform that I can speak to. But that also allows me to develop policies that reflect the questions that are arising here in Galway. So as part of my campaign, what I'm doing is hosting a series of community meetings. That's an opportunity for people to meet me and to talk with me, and it's an opportunity for me to sit down with local people and learn about their local issues from them. I'm a firm believer that local people know the solutions to their local issues, and what they need is somebody who's willing to sit down and listen and talk with them, find out about that, and then work alongside them to have their messages raised into a bigger platform and to have those solutions resolved or enacted. We have our first 3 meetings are set up already. They're in the diary and they're on my website. If for me to say that, even for me to even say that, they're on my website, but they are. It's February 12th is our first meeting in Chantala at the community centre. Then we're going to go out to Oughterard on February 19th, and we're going to come back into the city for Ballyban on the 19th. So every Thursday evening at 7 p.m, I'm going to be sitting down. We're calling them tea and talks, or cup on, I guess, conch. Sitting down with a cup of tea or a glass of water, and just having a talk. And I'm envisioning 12 or 15 people sitting around a table. These are not big town halls that I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for real conversations with people. So every Thursday we'll have more locations then as the campaign rolls along. And again, it's that opportunity for people to come to know me who haven't met me, and for me to come to hear and listen and reflect alongside people in Galway West.
Well, we'll definitely, alongside the interview page when this is hosted on the website, we'll definitely have links to those. I'm going to try to attend as well. I'll be curious to see what other people have, because I'll be honest, I do spend 2 hours of my day every day complaining about things on the radio, so I would just like to go and hear what other people have to say, but certainly I will be paying attention. I hope to be at those. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, normally I do send people off to social media to follow, but maybe for this case, that website you mentioned?
It's Garrity for Galway.
Garrity for Galway. GARRITY?
Here you go. You can
Brilliant.
read it off my little flyer.
Garrity for Galway. GARRITYFORGALWAY. That is the link. We will have that up on the site. Sheila, thank you so much for joining me this morning, and the best of luck with everything moving forward.
It was a real pleasure. It was lovely to come in and have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're listening to The Breakfast Show on GoCom Radio. We're going to take it back to the music now.